months. Any meditators here tonight? Awesome. Well, I don't know about you, but I was bullied into it. Seriously, it was as if all the books I was reading ganged up on me at once. You know, all the cool kids are doing it. Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests, I hated to admit that it was working because I couldn't explain it really. But having come so recently from such a dark, dark place, I was willing to try anything. And to be honest, it was as if I'd been lent a pair of rose-colored glasses and everything before me was suddenly and lustrously illuminated by love. And then I discovered all my newfound spiritual beliefs tucked so masterfully into the 91 minutes of Kung Fu Panda, I just knew it was a sign. You know the line. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. It made me cry so hard, even though I'd heard that line before, but never from a wise, wrinkly old turtle. And I cried a lot in those days. A gentleman helping a little old lady across the street, a Hawaiian rainbow in my rearview mirror, a song on the radio, a quote from a book. But not one tear, ladies and gentlemen, like the torrent that had come before it was shed out of sadness. My gratitude journal, a suggestion from my girl Oprah, teemed with joyful moments. From Anais Nin, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was greater than the risk it took to blossom. See? How can you not cry? I even found myself crying one afternoon. I was running, listening to Kelly Clarkson blaring on my iPod. I got to the ocean and it started to rain. Instantly, I was overwhelmed by emotion. It felt like this. I'll spread my wings and I'll learn how to fly. But it probably looked more like this. Do what it takes till I touch the sky. But never losing a single stride. I cried because each day I felt more on purpose, even though I had little clue yet what that purpose was. All I knew is that, like Thoreau, I wanted to go confidently in the direction of my dreams and live the life I imagined. Yes, I was an artist, and I felt most alive doing anything creative, whether that be on stage, entertaining, or writing. But what first? Let me let go. Let me let go. I don't know how many times I said it, but I sat there determined. All I knew is that I wanted to shed this skin and to drop this facade and to lift this weight off my shoulders finally after all these years. I had been there. I was the only witness. One day it was my mommy's little angel and my daddy's little darling, and the next day, I wasn't. He did it. I knew it. I was 5. I told them everything I knew. She was gone, and now he had to go away. And that was kindergarten. This is why, my friends, I believe that we love the underdog. This is why we relate so well to the hero's journey, and why I believe that it is actually our adversity that connects us best. I believe that it is those things that we try so hard to forget, the things that we try so hard to bury down deep and numb. Those are the actual fibers that forge meaning in our lives and build identity, and if we allow it, connect us better to each and every human being. And I learned this a few years ago when I shared my story for the first time. It finally allowed me to answer the question that I had for 30 years. Why me? Why this? It can be torturous to some people, and in fact, I had a friend of mine who, in high school, she committed suicide. She actually took a gun to her head. Her brother came running into the room and he grabbed her up in his arms, and she bled on top of the both of them as he held her, and she looked up at him and she said, "I don't want to die." And I believe that to be true for most people that commit suicide, and maybe in fact maybe all people that commit suicide, they don't want to die. They just want to kill the thoughts that are in their head, that voice that's in their head, that bully that's in their head. And I know that bully. I know it all too well. I didn't use a gun, but I used drinking and drugs, and I used TV and shopping and parties. So I know that voice. I know what it sounds like. You're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not tall enough, you're not skinny enough, you're not cool enough, you're not enough. And sometimes we try to run away from that voice, but what happens when you run away from the bully? He just wants to chase you, right? It just gives him more power. It's the same thing. So if we can't run from him, then what do we try to do? Shut up, we say, right? And what happens then? Look at the little guy trying to be tough. It doesn't work. So if we can't run from him and we can't fight him, then what do? The only thing we can do is we can embrace him. We can show him kindness. We can be compassionate towards him. It's like kryptonite for a bully. So we can do that with our thoughts. And then all of a sudden, I heard a voice. Kind of sounded like Deepak Chopra, if you want to know the truth. It said, "Tell your story." I immediately thought back to the last time I was asked to tell my story. It had been 2 years, but it seemed like a lifetime ago. I was back in my old school on the East Coast. My principal, Barbara, had approached me in the hallway to see if I'd be willing to present at the senior retreat. It would be the first time revealing such vulnerability to my students, but not only was I happy to do so, I was honored. And when I did, I was exhilarated by the overwhelming student response, many of whom later shared with me their own intimate stories. And this is why I'd gotten into teaching in the first place. I naively thought I'd be able to save them from the many mistakes I made and inspire them even like some school teacher superhero. So when this Deepak voice said, "Tell your story," I was like, yeah, motivational speaker, I never thought of that. Go to schools, crack a few jokes, get their attention, and then lay it on thick, scare straight facts. Because I dealt with stuff. I knew stuff. I dealt with divorce and depression and drinking and drugs and sexual identity. I had a friend in high school committed suicide, 2 others who were murdered in gang-related violence, and not to mention, I lost my mom when I was 5 to domestic violence tragedy. I have a story. But never had it occurred to me that that story could be of service to others. Real purpose began to pulse through my veins, and I was floored when finally everything made sense.